Hello world, welcome to the 202nd, number 202 climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm out on the Gettysburg battlefield and it's a beautiful sunrise coming up. It's Friday morning and it's October 21st, 2022. And this is for those who are from other nations around the world, which I have a lot of viewers. This is field corn. It's used primarily for feeding cattle here in the United States. So it's ready to be harvested. It doesn't look so good, but that's what it's supposed to look like when it's getting ready to be harvested. And the grains are used to feed cattle, and that's primary use. And then the opposite side, which in the last 30 years is a relatively new thing, it's called sorghum, and that also is used for cattle, but it is also gluten-free, and people around the world in Africa and such use sorghum for their own grains for food. So we have fields of it here. We're very lucky here on the East Coast United States. We're in South Central Pennsylvania and United States. And right so far we're slightly affected by climate change, but we've really dodged a bullet this year. I think the chickens are going to come home to roost eventually here for the United States, especially. And especially here on the East Coast. That's why you're not getting coverage about climate change for the most part, other than ignorance and total greed. Because the media is on the East Coast in New York City and stuff, and they're unaffected other than an occasional storm that kills several people at a time. But for the most part, the East Coast is unaffected, therefore climate change doesn't exist. And they have other distractions to talk about, such as football or basketball or baseball. And they call themselves world news, but we're really pitiful as a society. And I'm going to give you a breakdown of what's happening in the world, and then something more severe coming up for 2023. Oh joy. But this is a severe issue, and nobody's going to talk about it, so I might as well talk about it and bring it up. And this is what's coming for this year coming up, and it's not going to be pleasant. And as I said for several years, I estimated that 2023 is the wake-up call year. I doubt it for the United States, but 2023 should be the severe wake-up call for the world. And by 2026, 2028, 2030, we're going to have trouble surviving if we don't get on top of this climate change thing. But let's just keep burning oil and doing whatever and cutting down on the national reserves of oil and cranking it out so we don't have to pay $4 a gallon for oil or for gasoline. So right now in the West, there's not only the West now, the drought in the United States has spread totally. This is not going to work with cars. Anyways, the drought has spread not only from the west, it has also spread now all the way to the Ohio Valley. If you go to USA Drought Monitor, the drought now has spread all the way to the Ohio Valley, all the way into the Florida Panhandle. So drought begets drought, which leads to heat, which leads to fires, which leads to eventual downpours of rain, because the atmosphere is supercharged then, such as Hurricane Ian, heating up the Caribbean, but also holds more water vapor. So every 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature, you have a 7% increase in water vapor. So we've had basically a 14% increase in water vapor. That's why you're seeing these deluges, even though the United Nations will not say that we've had a 2 degree Celsius increase since 1750. But I've shown that we've already approached 2 degrees Celsius. And splitting hairs, the fact of the matter is these events are happening around the world. And now back to the wonderful news I'm about to give you. So the drought has spread. It's more severe. California, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska are major food production areas in the United States, are undergoing severe drought. Okay, there are 71 major fires in the United States right now, 71. Seattle, Washington in the USA has the worst air quality in the world right now. Are you understanding that? We talk to people and they can't come out of their house. I talked to one of my running friends from Boulder, Colorado, Benji, and he said that he's had friends in Seattle. Benji was a real famous runner, and he still is, but he influenced me as I was growing up. Benji Durden, sorry Benji. But he said that they're canceling cross-country races in the Washington area now because the air is so bad you can't run. It's very dangerous. So the West, we're having this turbulent heat area in the west, and then here in the east it's very cold right now. It's 31 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -1 Celsius or so. So it's topsy-turvy. It's because of a weakening jet stream, a weakened jet stream totally. And you get these nodes of cold that plunge down into the United States, and then you get the nodes pushing up into the Arctic. And so the jet stream is no longer behaving as it used to be. It used to be weather in Seattle would be here in 3 days in Pennsylvania, and it no longer even shows up. So it's a horrible situation going on with the weather, and so the warm air that pushes up all the way into the Arctic, and I do believe that's called a Rossby wave. Those of you who are more informed can tell me about that on the chat, but I'm pretty sure it's a Rossby wave going on because it sticks around for days. The situation. Europe recently was 86 to 91 degrees Celsius. That's 30 degrees or Fahrenheit. Sorry. That was 30 to 32.6 degrees Celsius. In California, with the fires in 2022 this year, they shot out two times the emissions that were eliminated over the last 20 years in California. So all the action and efforts to combat climate change and putting CO2 in the atmosphere was thwarted just in 1 year of wildfires. So 20 years was negated over 1 year. Preparation is back to Hurricane Ian. It is the $15th billion disaster in the United States for climate change. Just this year, $15th billion plus disaster. So preparation is needed. You know how to when climate change is coming your way, and you're going to be affected either by hurricanes, floods, fires, and things like that. But more importantly, we need to have effort done by politicians as to how to reduce climate change, you know, through CO2 in the atmosphere and things like that. But we're not about to do that. We're not about to get off of oil or anything like that. And we're being led by a ship of fools all the way around. So right now, I'm going to focus on the one issue that's coming up in 2023. There are many coming up in 2023. But a huge one coming up in 2023 is this. It is food. Okay, right now, USA, the grain bins and things like that, the farmers' grain bins are depleted. Okay, which stands to reason. They're in their 3rd year of drought, and the grain bins are depleted. Are you getting this? The farmers are going out and they're saying their storage bins are empty, and this leads to all sorts of side issues then. Food production in the United States, 10 to 20% reduction in tomatoes, potatoes, celery, and peaches. The big hits, up to 50% reduction in the West, is through corn, winter wheat, carrots, and rice. Are you understanding this? 50% reduction. What do you think is going to happen as far as the grocery stores and things like that? Cattle and beef and bisons, farmers have had to sell off their herds because they can't feed them grain and they can't survive, which led to a glut in meat in the stores here in the United States. But consumption has gone way up. So you'd think the price of meat would have gone down, but consumption has gone way up. And what that causes then is that what's going to happen in 2023 is, with no herds or herds down of cattle, total amount of cattle, you're going to end up with a beef going up in price at a ridiculous rate. Same with bison as well. So it's going to take years to rebuild the herds that have been depleted out west. You know, farmers can't afford to keep their herds, so they had to sell them off. And then the herds were depleted. There's a glut of meat on the market. Then the glut will end, and there won't be beef available. And you're going to see some giant price rises in beef production, such as hamburger and things like that. And good luck, people, on that. So it's going to take years to rebuild the herds. The herds are depleted. They're all gone. You know, if nature cooperates, they might rebuild over a year or 2 or 3, however long it takes to get cattle up to snuff. So it's probably you're looking at 2 or 3 years of pain in the United States. Europe has endured crop losses of 35% to 80%. Okay, depending on which country you're in. Italy has lost up to 80% of their crops. How you doing? Fertilizer right now is rising at a huge exponential amount, not exponential, but a huge amount. Fertilizer around the world, it's not available or it's being reduced altogether. In Africa, in the Horn of Africa, 39 million are at the risk of starvation right now. Nigeria is totally flooded. Crop failure, cattle losses in Africa are huge right now. They're not only losing their crops, such as the ones we have here, but they're also losing their cattle as well. Asia, as you know, Pakistan had 90% crop loss. Are you understanding this? The entire country of Pakistan has lost 90% of their crops due to floods, and before that, they had massive heat. India has also had heat and then massive floods. They provide the world with 40% of the world's rice. Okay, people don't know that. They're banning the export of cheaper rice, which is what the poor countries rely on, broken grains and things like that, fragmented grains, broken rice. But they're also, so they're banning that, but they're also having a 20% tax on husked brown rice as well as milled white rice. So you're going to see your rice costs go way up. So that's not to mention even the war in Ukraine. You know, you got the war in Ukraine where much of the country has been devastated through war, but also the grains that were to be exported out of Ukraine through the Black Sea has been choked off by the Russians. China has had one of the worst droughts ever in their history. So they don't have grain production. As I showed photographs of, part of the Yangtze River was partially dried up. They can't do transportation. And I think the Yangtze goes all the way down to Shanghai. Pigs can't be fed grains in China, so they have massive pig loss as well as disease. So what's going on right now is that the United Nations Secretary General, Guterres, Secretary General, said we're going to have a worldwide food shortage in 2023. Farmers in the United States are paying more than the market price to secure grain to feed their cattle if they can get a hold of it or they can afford it. They're paying more than that for not only grain but for hay as well, so they can feed their cattle. The rich countries, what they're doing then is outbidding the poor countries for grains. Okay, that's what's going to happen in 2023. It's sinister as to what's going on. We all do this, that we'll pay a higher price then, and what the result of that is the countries of Africa and Pakistan and things like that can't afford to feed themselves. So that's going to result in massive starvation around the world. So the question is, you know, about your religion and things like that, you know, and all religions have a basis in treat others as you want to be treated. Well, up to a point, and then I'll pay you, and then, you know, and then you'll starve to death, and who cares? And that includes Christianity, Buddhism, Islamic nations, things like that. It's like we got to start looking at the other countries around the world and figure out how, as a group, we can survive this and what we need to do to get out of this situation. So what's going to happen around the world, in addition to starvation, you're going to end up with social unrest. Not only starvation, you don't have water, okay? Countries don't have water. It's hard to believe in the United States, but there are places with no water. Some places in the United States actually have that situation going on right now. So you end up with social unrest, you end up with hoarding, you end up with fights, people fighting over food. Then the governments get stressed out. Then they incorporate martial law, which solves absolutely nothing. Okay, it doesn't solve the problem. All it does is control the population. The problem is the USA media will not focus on what's going on. They're covering stupid stuff, and when you're seeing it on the air and you don't know what's happening, of course, I don't know how you won't know what's happening, because people watch incessantly ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox Television, and they really don't have a clue as to what's happening. We're not a world nation. We're a very self-indulgent nation, and we refuse to step out of ourselves. I've talked to so many people that think it's one party or the other party that's causing the problems, and the problem is the whole system is messed up in this country. And it's the corporation, or the media is controlled by corporations, and the very wealthy and the very connected are controlling everything, including the government. It's payola. With oil production, for example, they'll give subsidies to the oil and gas companies and coal companies, and on the back end, they will in turn fund the re-election of the same people that just passed the laws to authorize more subsidies to those companies. So it's a revolving door of money, corruption, and greed going on. And it's not going to stop until you guys stop voting for these people. I don't care if it's your party or someone else's party or whatever. These people are incompetent. They're greedy. They don't know what's happening in the world. They don't want to know what's happening in the world. And we're going to die a horrendous death. And 2023 is going to be a wake-up call for many people. So 2023 is coming. This is a hand grenade for all politicians. You can win your election. Good luck to you, because what's going to happen next year, and they're going to blame the other people, And the fault is in the politicians, local, state, and federal, okay? No one is talking about the issue of climate change at all. And now it's coming home to roost. And this is a food issue going on. This is a hand grenade for all politicians. And good luck being elected, because the pin's been pulled and you deal with it. And they're just going to toss a hand grenade at the population and blame us somehow for what's going on. And you are to blame. We're an uninformed public. People aren't doing their job to get out and understand what's going on. Get away from your media at night, okay? Get on YouTube. Go to foreign sources for what's happening in the world. Go to Africa news. Go to Asian news. Go to European news. South American news, whatever. Get away from this. You guys really have no idea what's happening. I've talked to so many people about this, and there's no mention of climate change, no nothing, no nothing. They think the big issues are this or that, and they're not. They're huge, they're big issues to them, but overall the arching issue is survival at this point, and we're not going to survive if we don't deal with this climate change issue, and this is going to be extremely painful this year in 2023. Second quarter is going to be horrendous for everyone, except for the very wealthy. They don't care, and they're the ones in charge of everything. So the election, okay, they need to change their focus. The politicians need to, and the people need to change, force them to change their focus as to what's going on. And I don't know how you teach an idiot how to become educated as far as what's going on. What the real answer is, we need a whole crop of different politicians and a whole system change around the world as to what's going on. And the United States especially, we have a two-party system that's going on. There's no input from anywhere else. And I've witnessed this, that the Green Party was kicked off the ballot in Pennsylvania because for the presidential ballot, for whatever reason, but the judges were Democrats and Republicans, and they kicked them off the ballot in Pennsylvania last presidential election. So there's no outside thought. Everything is within the corporate line, which is the two parties, and I'm offending you guys, but you need to correct your own system within your own party, okay? You're going to be offended and hurt by this, and you should be, because you need to look in the mirror as to what's going on, and things are spinning out of control. And remember this talk in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, when things are spinning out of control and you try to blame the other side, stop it. Okay, look in the mirror, blame yourself. This is what's going on. So I'll catch you next week. This will be Climate Change Talk number 203. I shouldn't be at this point. It should have stopped at 1 and things should have been done. That'll be on October 28th, 2022. See you then.